Heritage Foundation. For people that don't know, if you don't mind telling everybody what Heritage Foundation does.
We've been around 52 years, 53 years now this year, and what we do is focus on public policy problems. First of all, in the 1970s and 80s at the federal level, but increasingly, especially over the last 4 or 5 years since I've been president, also at the state level, all for the purposes of devolving power from Washington and giving it back to the states and to the people. But the thing that made us unique in the 1980s, Patrick, was that we didn't just write white papers, which is the typical work of a think tank. I don't even use the word think tank to describe Heritage, although I think we do the best thinking in the business. We're a public policy advocacy organization because the purpose of our research is then to walk across the street, go to Capitol Hill, and advocate for that research to help draft legislation. We also have an issues campaign arm called Heritage Action that is able to do, under federal law, more of that advocacy work. They do our lobbying on Capitol Hill on behalf of the American people. The other thing that we do that a lot of Americans don't pay attention to, which is okay, is that we help to connect the conservative movement around the world. We're very active in the Far East, in Europe, in Latin America, increasingly in Africa, all for the purpose of restoring self-governance. And so while we are nonpartisan, we are unabashedly philosophically conservative, and we believe that not only is a smaller government good, but the reason that a smaller government is good is because it gives you and me and all 330 million Americans more self-governance. That's the reason that Heritage exists.
I love it. Okay, and you guys got started in early 70s, right?
73.
73, okay. And how much, the other day I'm having a conversation with a McKinsey guy, consulting, and he's a senior partner with them, been there for 25 years. And I said, how much has the consulting business with you guys changed? And he says, I got to tell you. He says, 10 years ago, if a client would call us, $500,000 engagement, $1 million engagement, can you write us a analysis on the industry, what, SWOT analysis, what we have going on? We'd write a paper and we'd give it to him, $500,000 to $1 million. He says, 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, whenever ChatGPT came out, he says, I went on there and I wrote out, client asked me for the same exact product, it's a $1 million product. I went on ChatGPT and I said, write it out for me, the report. It spits out the report. I give it a couple prompts. Then I take it. Then I give it to my executive team to approve before I send to the clients. They said, we know you use ChatGPT because he's testing them as a senior partner, but it's scary that this is 90% work of what we would do. What could it turn into the next 3, 5, 10 years? Where am I going to with you?
I think I know where you're going.
So you're writing white papers back in the days, and you kind of, you're not going to get younger guys coming out and calling you guys out, and having all this pressure that you have, and everybody kind of looks at you guys as professors and scholars, and we have to listen to them, and this is how the system works, and you got to work your way up as a columnist, and you do this. Then social media hits. Then everybody's got a voice, and everybody's doing what it's doing. How much harder is it to do what you do today versus what it was pre-social media era?
Gosh, it's a heck of a lot harder.
Okay.
It's and I've seen that. I'm an educator by training, and have been in public policy for a decade. Just in the decade that I've been in, because of social media, now because of AI, it's changed. But it changed even before then. Our longtime president, co-founder, the late Dr. Ed Fulner, passed away last year, said that, and he remained on our board and a close friend of mine, great mentor. He said, up until the last months of his life, he said, Kevin, the change that he had to adapt Heritage to, which was the advent of Fox News, which was a good thing, right? Mm-hmm. The advent of the very early days of social media, that paled in comparison to what we were now having to deal with. Not just we at Heritage, but the whole ecosystem of organizations like ours, the advent of AI. But one thing in particular, Patrick, that I'll home in on, and that is that everyone can be a self-appointed expert. Now, I say that with great celebration. I think that's good. Heritage is funded not by a few grand white knights in Washington, D.C., mm-hmm. but by 565,000 individual members, everyday Americans, which means that although we're headquartered in D.C., we're not of D.C. All of that to say we celebrate the democratization of information. But to your question, the heart of your question about how that has made our work more difficult, we have to adapt to that. And so what we've done, the bottom line is continue to do the research, now aided with artificial intelligence. You'll never have a paper that's published by Heritage where artificial intelligence has written it, but we would be inefficient, we'd be sort of dumb if we didn't use AI for some of the data research. And then of course we double and triple check that. Mm-hmm. But the big thing that we've done is shorten a lot of our research so that it can be more timely. We've spent a lot of time and resources on how to message some of these longstanding conservative principles and policies. And in a lot of ways, while I think a lot of people outside of heritage deserve credit for this too, heritage has helped to lead the way in that adaptation to this environment we're in. We still have work to do to adapt to it fully, but ultimately what we want to do is get good votes on good legislation and good votes on bad legislation. We're pretty good at both. And obviously the environment we're in with technology is challenging, but filled with opportunities.
When we set out to create a shoe that blends comfort, function, and luxury, we had the choice to make it fast. We had the choice to make it cheap. We chose neither. Instead, we chose Tuscany, Italy. We chose true Italian craftsmanship, each pair touched by 50 skilled hands. We chose patience, spending 2 years perfecting every detail, and we chose the finest quality at every step. Introducing the Future Looks Bright collection. Not rushed, not disposable, not ordinary. Rather, intentional, luxurious, timeless. If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.